My name is Am Rosen. Welcome to the podcast library, Psychological Keys to Human Fulfillment. You've entered the section of this library titled The Art of Health. This is podcast 3, Fueling the Body, Part 1, Digestion and Assimilation. As a human prototype, our basic biofunctions haven't changed much while we could go back millions of years along the evolutionary journey of our species, let's be achingly conservative and say that the basic biofunctions of our body haven't changed significantly in the last 100,000 years. However, the impact of the environmental and social circumstances under which our species has come to operate has changed drastically. In prehistoric primitiveness, the hunter-gatherer would forage daily for the edibles that would sustain their survival. Access to food, water, and rudimentary shelter was solely dependent upon what the nearby environment provided. They had absolutely no say over the quirky changeability of the plants, animals, and climatic conditions of their very limited stretch of local geography. Their main obsession was to search out and consume this unavoidably necessary, life-sustaining commodity. When they saw it, when they smelt its aroma, their mouths filled with saliva in hungry anticipation. Probably they would only interrupt devouring their meal if some unexpected danger suddenly appeared in threatening attack mode. We talk about gut emotions because regardless of how you rationalize about things or avoid thinking about things, everything that you feel registers through your visceral organs and affects tissue disposition throughout your body. While in today's madcap world of incessant struggling, we humans constantly worry over money, social commitments, unsatisfied sexual needs, just to name a few of the many concerns that continuously pester our modern psyches. Then there is the constant barrage of media with all those wondrous distractions so temptingly marketed to supposedly satisfy our covetous appetites. So, you can place food in your mouth and swallow it down, yet without meaning to, you can be emotionally derailing your body's ability to break down and assimilate the nutrients that you're consuming. Part of the ritual of saying grace before a meal is to place you into a receptive frame of mind, to get you off of that outer treadmill of activity and reorient you to connecting to your body in such a way that you can transmute solid food into biochemical energy. Understand, it's not what you swallow, it's what you can break down and assimilate that counts. For instance, you could swallow a teaspoon of liquid mercury. Your body's digestive processes aren't constructed to be able to break down and assimilate mercury, nor would you want to, because mercury stuck inside of your body would prove very detrimental to your health. Feeding your body is like putting gas in your car. You filled up the tank this morning, but you spent the day driving all over creation. Why do I have to put more gas in the car? Because you've used up the energy source. And no machine, be it mechanical or biological, can operate without an adequate source of energy. The better you understand the processes of your body's functions, the more adequately you can work with it to direct and satisfy your health-related needs. Hello, humanity. Today we're going to begin assessing your health-related imbalances. Even though you've had an abundance of food to indulge in, due to deficiencies in your digestive system, well, it's like you've been starving in the midst of a feast. Digestion starts before you even place food in your mouth. The sight or the smell of food, even the thought of food that you've enjoyed in your past, can stimulate an emotional reflex in your body that makes your mouth salivate. As you will see, different parts of your digestive system have different functions and different enzyme secretions to support the activity of those functions. We'll be discussing more about the quality of food you consume in our next consultation. Right now, let's just consider the basics of digestion. When you put food in your mouth, if you chew it well and it mixes with the saliva, well, let's say that you've eaten a complex carbohydrate, maybe potato, pasta, bread. If you chew it well and it mixes with the saliva, the enzymes in that saliva should break it down to where about 40%, that's almost half of the carbohydrate, is digested before it even leaves your mouth. Not only that, there are encoded enzymes, messengers, created through DNA factors that alert the body through the smell, through the taste, through the secretions in the saliva, alert down into the stomach area. Food is going to be coming down. Start to get ready to secrete the stomach acids, the HCl and the pepsin that will go into further digestion. So let's say you've chewed this food really well and it's a paste and a good bit of it's been broken down, particularly the carbohydrate, and now it passes down into the stomach. Your stomach, as you can see, is like a grinding sack. It kind of starts to mix what you've done together with the HCl and the pepsin that's being secreted. Now, the HCl and pepsin starts to break down and the proteins and the minerals. It doesn't completely digest them, but it further breaks them down, makes them more malleable and more ready for the next phase of the digestion. Your food passes from the stomach, let's say you've digested this very well, after a couple of hours. Depends on the kind of food you're eating. The heavier, the denser the food, the longer it takes for your stomach to process it. But now it's passed through the pyloric valve and it's moved into the beginning of the small intestine, which is the duodenum. Now the duodenum is where most of the rest of the digestive enzymes come in. Most of them come in from your pancreas, which is on the left side of your body, and that's where most of the enzymes that will break down the carbohydrates and the proteins and minerals to their completion. And if you've consumed fat in your diet, natural or otherwise, then your gallbladder will squeeze in a little bit of bile into the mix in your duodenum so that you can start to also break down the fats. Now, this all mixes what's already been partially digested and continues to break down the food that you've consumed. If it breaks down adequately as it leaves the duodenum, where it's been mixed thoroughly and the digestive process is taking place, it breaks it down into its constituent elements. The minerals become organic. They become available to the system. The proteins become amino acids, their basic structure. They become available to the system. The fats are broken down so that all of this becomes bioavailable fuel. And as it moves through the 22, 23 feet of small intestinal tract, as it's broken down sufficiently, it moves through the intestinal walls and it's assimilated into the bloodstream and distributed, the various nutrients, into where they need to be used in the body for energy, for further maintenance, for reconstruction. All right, that's a simple sense of if your digestion is working properly. However, suppose your digestive processes aren't functioning adequately. Well, as I've said, it's not what you put in your mouth and swallow, it's what you can break down and assimilate. If you are not chewing your food well in your mouth, then it's not tearing down, it's coming in big chunks. The saliva, the enzymes in the saliva don't have a chance to mix and break things down. If you're in a hurry and you go chomp, chomp, and you swallow it down, well, then the stomach's going to have a harder time with it. The stomach, in turn, may not be able to efficiently do its job to break things down. It has these undigested things from the mouth that it can't function. It makes the stomach work harder. That means it may do an improper job, an inadequate job, and when it passes it through to the duodenum, that's going to have some problems digesting. So that's one of the considerations. Mastication, taking your time. Now, if you're in a hurry, if you're very distracted, if you're full of tension and anxiety, which you have all too often been from what you've been telling to me, well, you don't get into the process. The cueing factors and the smell and the taste, the delight in eating are not factored in. You're just throwing stuff down there. Again, your body may not be able to break it down. Then, as I said, we're going to be examining foods more in depth, but if the foods have been heavily processed, if they've been denatured, the vital nutrients have been taken out of them, the vital fibers, the natural enzymes that are inherent in the food have been destroyed, and they're not there to assist and work with the body, again, you're going to have a tougher time breaking it down. Think about some of the processed foods you eat, like let's say white bread. When I was a kid in school or at camp, we used to play with paper mache. You know, we'd have a shape, we'd want to mold around it. We'd take strips of old newspaper and we'd dip it in this bowl of paste, and then we'd wrap it around the object, and it would harden to form the shape. So we could lift the object out and we'd still have the shape. Now that paste that we use was simply white flour, processed white flour and water, because it's pure starch, no nutrients, and this is the kind of paste that you've been consuming. It's very hard to break down. It also creates the excess carbohydrates, puts a lot of stress on your system in terms of creating sugars. Your body is a sucker for sugar. If you put steak in your mouth and sugar in your mouth at the same time, the body will always go for the enzymes that break down the sugar first and foremost. They may do an incomplete job of breaking down some of the proteins because of that. Then you add to that the kind of chemicals that you've consumed when you've been sick, the kind of drugs that you've taken because you've had indigestion. All of those things have not cured your problem. They've suppressed the symptoms of your problem. Understand, you thought you had heartburn. The effects, what seems to be too much acid in your system is exactly the same effect as having too little acid in your system. If the pH is off either way, you can have heartburn. The tightening in your stomach because it's overworked may not allow things to pass through. They may become stuck. The sphincters that move from the stomach into the duodenum may become locked up so that you can't get the food down properly. It may back up on you. So you are depleted in a lot of ways. All of this accounts for your poor digestion. As I said, so instead of the fuel you're consuming, the food, breaking down into available fuel to power your activities, instead it's become a burden on your body. You've had to use even more energy just to handle this, to try and eliminate, to try and compensate for what it's doing, which has further drained you of energy instead of giving you energy. It's also made for a deficiency of available nutrients that other systems in your body need to function adequately to provide you the vitality you want. And because your body at times has been so imbalanced, so depleted, you haven't had the energy to think. You've had to use up a lot of your mental energy, your willpower, to force the body along because it wasn't going adequately for you. When your body's full of vitality, then it feeds your mental processes and you're freer to think, to perform on that level. So, humanity. Manufactured, denatured substances, chemical substances, can further deplete your body. Instead of helping you out, they can put more stress on your body. There's chemicals that you're consuming all the time. They're in the air. They're modern technology. The air is saturated with chemicals. You take them through your skin. You take them in through the water supply. You take them in the food you're eating. It's not just that they're processed, they're chemicalized. And all of these things create further strain on your digestion and make it more difficult for you to get the nutrients that you need. Also, a big factor is antibiotics. Now, antibiotics are there, you can use them to eradicate unfriendly, negative bacteria, harmful bacteria. But they also, at the same time, take out the friendly, the vital bacteria. And you have trillions of friendly bacteria that should be in your body. But if you wipe them out and you've created a congestive breeding ground, and the things are forming, they're not passing through, then it's harder for these friendly bacteria to take root and function. The unfriendly bacteria start to war with the friendly bacteria. They can predominate. They can interfere with your ability to digest and your ability to ward off further invasion by bacteria and viruses. All of these things have been placing undue strain on your systems. But certainly, we live in a modern world. These things are around. So the question is, what can you do about them so that you can have the vibrancy you want from health and go about your business? Well, as I've said, in the next session, we're going to be discussing diet and nutrition. But it's important for you to start to understand that just because you put something in your mouth and swallow it doesn't mean that you're getting what you need. Maybe because it wasn't in what you're putting in your mouth and swallowing, or maybe because what you're swallowing is not only not beneficial, but can be somewhat harmful, or even if it is beneficial, you probably haven't been able to break it down and digest, assimilate what you need. So your body's been essentially running on empty. You've been starving in the midst of a feast. All right. In the next session, we're going to talk about, as I said, diet and nutrition, and I'll give you an idea of how we can start to change you around. Gravity holds you to the earth and keeps your physical survival bound to the material plane. Gravity weighs you down. It's constantly pulling on your vital organs. Throughout your human lifespan, gravity forces you to use a lot of energy just to sustain life support. Ah, yes. Entropy the constant wearing down of your energy vehicle to the depleted point of no longer functioning exhaustion. In the physicist's gospel of the laws of thermodynamics, it's a scientific way of saying dust to dust. Now, allow me to introduce into your consideration syntropy. In thermodynamics, in entropy, any functioning complex that processes energy will eventually use up that energy and thereby lose its ability to maintain its form and will dissipate. Now, in syntropy, we use consciousness. We find means, ways of focusing energy back in to sustain or rebuild or expand the system. So, whereas left to its own, the body will go the way of all flesh, with the intercession of consciousness, your body can start to maintain, stabilize, and even expand its capabilities. In the next podcast, Fueling the Body, Part 2, we will be examining diet and nutrition. Thank you for lending some of your consideration. Until we meet again.